Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Folks at the audience, can you guys hear me? There was some technical glitch from the BrightTALK side, so it took certainly a few minutes. I mean, we are delayed by 30 minutes. If someone can text out to me on the chat section that you guys can hear me so that I can begin. All right, so folks can hear me now. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all my friends joining from different parts of the world. Thank you for taking out your valuable time to listen out to me on my favorite topic, which is getting prepared for blockchain. Just to give you an introduction, I'm a blockchain expert at the Indian subcontinent, and we're speaking about blockchain and cryptocurrency from past 2 years. I'm a founder of a company called Towards Blockchain, which is a blockchain development and a research organization based out of Cambridge Innovation Center at Massachusetts. And today I'll be walking you through some of the aspects of blockchain and will give you the idea that why one should look its future or look some of the career options in the blockchain space. So a bit of introduction about the blockchain. Like it's essentially a distributed database of records or public ledger, as we all know, of all transactions or digital events that have been executed and shared among participating parties. I always believe in making the definition simpler, so you can consider as a blockchain definition it as that it is easy to steal a cookie from a jar which is kept at the secluded place, but it's difficult to steal a cookie from a jar that's kept in a marketplace because it is being observed by thousands of people. Similarly, that's how blockchain works. You have multiple parties which are maintaining your records, and everyone has a synchronization, and the transactions are validated through a consensus mechanism. As we go forward, we'll talk about it. But we all have seen the internet as the first, as the medium of exchanging information, but there was something missing, which was exchange of value. So blockchain has the potential to definitely address this problem in a way that it actually gives you something to validate through a previous record which has already been maintained in a ledger, and then you can actually see it in the Explorer that the history is there or not. So blockchain without the internet would have been meaningless, but the blockchain was born because of certain areas that people feel that there are some of the loopholes. So we all know Bitcoin is the most popular example that is intrinsically tied to blockchain technology. It is also the most controversial one since it helps to enable a multi-billion-dollar global market of anonymous transactions. So yes, hence a lot of government has been eyeing towards Bitcoin as the illegal thing to trade on, and most of the governments have not clarified that it's a legal tender. Can be one store of value in it, or can just one keep it as just a medium to something to hold it on the exchanges. So however, if you look at blockchain technology in itself, it's non-controversial and has worked flawlessly over the years and is being successfully applied to both financial and non-financial world applications. As we move forward, I'll give you some of the scenarios of what are use cases in the financial and non-financial industries. So if we look at some of the areas like how money has evolved over a period of time, earlier we used to do a barter system, but barter has failed because of there was lack of value which has to be exchanged. If I'm giving you something in return, I'm expecting something. There was no common grounds to exchange values of the certain commodities or goods. And then we have moved it on to precious metals, but these were very difficult to carry. And then later on, we have moved it on to the fiat currency, but 1971, if I am correct, President Nixon has removed or sort of I mean, he just abolished the existing Bretton Woods of international financial exchange and suspended that the fiat currency will not be backed by gold anymore. So one fun fact was, I mean, the government can print n number of fiat currency, which definitely causes the inflation in the ecosystem. And 2008 financial crisis, we all are aware of it. So which gave sort of advantage to a Bitcoin to succeed in the economy where you do not have to be dependent on these centralized institutions for your transactions to be validated. So a group of anonymous people have written a white paper by the title of a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and they have mined the first block and named it as a Jennifer block. You can consider blockchain as the bogies of a train, that every coach has different transactions, and coaches are linked to each other through hash values. So if you remove one coach from the chain, that the other block will not be able to actually see what was the past values and never be able to get in synchronization. So in other words, you can think it as a pages of a book, that every other book page is being synchronized to the other and then binded in through certain significant index which has been given at the front of the page. So Bitcoin certainly took a lot of time to get into the mainstream, even as a source of an investment. I've been the early adopter of a Bitcoin, saw it early days, 2013 and 14. I wish I could have bought it in the bulk during those days. But yes, if you look at it, the current digital economy, it is based on the reliance on the certain trusted authorities. Our all online transactions rely on trusting someone. It can be an email service provider telling us that our email has been delivered. It can be a certification authority telling us that certain digital certificate is trustworthy. Or it can be a social network such as Facebook, telling us that our posts regarding our life events have been shared only with our friends. The fact is that we live our life precariously and in the digital world by relying on the third entity. This is what I purely like about blockchain, that it is a phenomena which is very much towards decentralizing it. So if you look at blockchain from a certain angle, I feel blockchain is more of a psychological advancement rather than a technological advancement. So quoting Rocco quote, It looks like we are presently in the midst of a third intellectual revolution. The first came with Newton, the planets obey physical laws. The second came with Darwin, biological obeys genetic laws. In today's third revolution, we're coming to realize that even minds and societies emerge from interacting laws that can be regarded as computation. So everything is going to be computation in going forward down the lane. So blockchain is nothing but the technology behind the cryptocurrencies, and the first cryptocurrency was definitely Bitcoin. You can take it as that email was the first application of an internet. Bitcoin was the first application of the blockchain. Blockchain is definitely a buzzword these days in a similar fashion to what happened with the social media in 2008 and 2009. This disruptive technology is changing thousands of LinkedIn biographies for sure. I'm sure you have changed your LinkedIn biography as a blockchain consultant, blockchain expert, ICO advisor, Bitcoin trader. So yes, we have been seeing a lot of shift which is happening using these technology, and a lot of my friends, early teenagers, have become so rich because they were the early investors of the miners of Bitcoin. So we started with cryptocurrency, which actually was the first application of a blockchain. And now if I look at it, that's what went next. And Bitcoin is also known as blockchain 1.0. And in 2015, the Ethereum network was launched by a youngster called Vitalik Buterin, which was basically a network which on top of which you can create a smart contract, which were again not dependent on decentralized institution, and it can be executed if the conditions meet. So let's take an example of a smart contract like it's a vending machine. If you put $1, you get a water. If you put $2, you're still getting a water, there's a problem. So smart contracts can be considered as if and else conditions. Once they meet, it gets executed. So a lot of different use cases, and a lot of smart contracts have been used to raise, to build a lot of applications which has raised an ICOs of multi-billion dollars. So if you look at it, the crypto boom in late 2017, cryptocurrencies have gained traction, with an ever-increasing number of cryptocurrencies entering the market through ICOs and different ways. Majorly through ICOs because those were the easier ways to raise money for some of your projects. Early days, people has raised money by only or through only a white paper. Today, the cryptocurrency market is worth of close to $200 billion or a little above that. Having reached its peak value, we have already seen $800 billion in late 2017 or early 2018. So what is blockchain? I mean, in a simplest form, if someone has to make you understand blockchain, it is nothing but a distributed ledger technology, like I said. But what does it actually mean? Why it is actually required? Through my presentation, I literally want to clarify on that. Because if you see the internet commerce, it's exclusively tied to the financial institutions, serving as a trusted third party who process and mediate any electronic transaction. The role of trusted third party is to validate, safeguard, and preserve transactions. Now, in this blockchain economy, you can do it without a trusted third party. The transactions can be validated through a set of people called miners, and the consensus algorithm, it's actually a brain of blockchain. I mean, if someone has to cancel their stock right now, or 51% of the people have to agree. There are different consensus algorithms which has been evolved over a period of time. So to me, believing in consensus algorithm it's like you believe in the CPU because it's the brain of the computer system. So consensus algorithm actually is the brain of the blockchain technology to get executed. The nodes verify the transactions and actually convert it to or send it to the other party. So if I need to make it simpler, what I can think about it as an example of you're writing a check to someone. You write the amount and you write their account number. I can call that account number as a public key, and I can call the signature as a private key because every signature is unique, and I do not want to tell my signature to anyone and do not want it to get tampered. So the check goes to a checkbox which can be considered as a block where transactions are being validated and put in a block. The block gets verified and added to a chain which is called a blockchain. So the other way to explain to the youngsters could be the coaches which I've already explained, the trained coaches, that every coach is full of transactions and then added to the subsequent one to a hash value. I'll explain more in the questions if there are questions regarding the technical part, like what is hash value, like how we can derive the blockchain consensus problem and how the blocks are mined to it. So some of the basic features of blockchain are decentralized, immutable, trustless, transparent. But now you would ask me that, Aman, why should we look at certain features? What was the problem in the existing infrastructure? Yes, I mean, existing infrastructure works to an extent. I'll also give you an overview of when to use a blockchain and when not to use a blockchain. So for now, if I ask you to just hold on to these points, like it's a decentralized, immutable, trustless, and transparent, and additional features are permissionless, and public, private, and anonymous. I mean, if you would like to dig deeper onto this, I will take the questions and then probably be able to share some of the examples. As we move forward, there will be more questions which we have clarified. So cryptocurrencies, I've already explained, these were the first application of a blockchain, and over a period of time, these cryptocurrencies have evolved. More than just a store of value, it is also a medium of an exchange. Cryptocurrencies today have become hugely popular with an increasing user base, and now new use emerging every day. So I come from an Indian ecosystem. Recently, 2 days back, a cryptocurrency ATM machine was installed because there was some kind of a gray area from the Indian government, but thankfully we now have a cryptocurrency ATM machine to transact with the fiat, and probably you can deposit in the wallet from there as well. I'm yet to use it. So I'm pretty much excited that India is also moving towards an advancement where cryptocurrency adoption is being very highly acceptable. So how does it actually work if I should validate a transaction or send a transaction to someone? Each transaction, once signing from a private key, which is my signature, is broadcasted to every node. I'm taking an example of Bitcoin network, and then recorded in a public ledger after verification. Every single transaction needs to be verified for validity before it is recorded in the public ledger, or probably you can say before it goes to a block in a blockchain. Verifying nodes needs to ensure two things before they actually go to a block, which is spender owns the cryptocurrency, the digital signature verification for the transaction, which is the spender, do I have a balance or not, or spender has sufficient cryptocurrencies to watch he or she is transacting. So spender's account is a public key in the ledger to make sure that he or she has a sufficient balance in her account. Once I've already signed a transaction, it then goes to a network, it's picked by a miner, validates the transaction, puts it to a block, and then block gets verified and added to a chain, which is called blockchain. So what is the scenario of a blockchain at the present? I mean, what do you actually see? What are some of the things which are happening in the blockchain ecosystem? There are more than, I think there's an old stat, but there are more than 1,000 ICOs which have been raised in this ecosystem, who has raised more than $20 billion in the fund size as an estimate. The Bitcoin network has already has 17 million blocks, with a block being added every 10 minutes. So the supply of a Bitcoin is limited, which is 21 million, which is what it doesn't add to the inflation, because in the fiat, the inflation can cause very easily because you do not have the finite number and governments can print any number of fiat. So blockchain solutions spanning governance, finance, supply chain, management, healthcare, telecommunication, and other several fields which are being adopted worldwide in the institutions, government. I'll share some of the examples going forward. Blockchain technology is on the rise and is expected to augment other technologies such as IoT, AI to deliver fourth industrial revolution. We all have seen the industrial revolution going from steam engine to electric to the internet to now a combination of different emerging technologies. I see that IoT, AI, and blockchain will play a very crucial role in coming years down the lane. I also spending a lot of time researching in this area, and I personally call it the Holy Trinity because this technology has a lot of potential to add it to the fourth industrial revolution. So if you see right now that what are some of the industries that blockchain is being used or probably experimented, or if it's on the production stage or it's on the awareness. So some of the major industries is obviously automotive industries, and after that you can see that healthcare is one of the areas because medical health records is a major issue these days, and land records is also one which falls under the government sector. And oil and gas, a lot of people have experimented. Venezuela has launched their own cryptocurrency. Financial services, no doubt, I'll share some of the examples going forward that what could be the potential use cases in the financial industry and non-financial industry. So these are some of the headlines which I have tried to put it for you all, that Yale University has recently invested $400 million in crypto-focused funds. Obviously, the other universities will follow them for sure because that's a game-changing thing. Probably can give you multi-million-dollar returns, or probably you can see it as one of the investment areas where when the economy is moving towards, I mean, I should not say this, when the economy is at threat, that probably cryptocurrencies can definitely come into a mainstream and then can be used as a legal tender to buy some of the utilities. The Japanese business has already started paying their workers in Bitcoin. I wish I could have been living in Japan because I still want Bitcoin to be there in my wallet. And blockchain, if you're aware that JP Morgan has developed a private side of Ethereum, which is Quorum, and we personally have experienced the better side of it comparing to the other blockchains and specific use cases. So these are some of the areas where a lot of people have already ventured into using blockchain or cryptocurrencies as a mainstream. So now coming back to the title of the presentation, why we should prepare for a blockchain. I mean, is it really necessary, or is it like any other technology which comes and go? Or probably I should look at it from a career perspective, or should I look at it from the investment perspective? I mean, you need to draw a line between where does your past experience have been, because I come from the engineering background and my engineering was only by chance and never took it very seriously in terms of coding. So I find blockchain is specifically a game changer for me in terms of fundamental, philosophical, psychological, rather than a technology in terms of coding. So blockchain is definitely expected to become a driving force for economical, technological, and social development. How you see social development? I mean, if you look at the statistics, the application of Bitcoin was basically, I believe that it was basically for the unbanked people. There are close to 2 billion people in the world who are unbanked, and most of them are refugees. They do not have a specific currency and do not have a bank account because of various other reasons, and they move from one country to another country, cannot be bound towards certain regulations or a constitution. So yes, from a social development perspective, it is definitely going to be an added advantage. Some estimate that the value of blockchain industry is to be worth of $40 billion in the future. Right now, it's still more than touching more than $500 billion and expected to be $2 to $3 trillion by next year. So a lot of projects are actually adding value rather than raising ICOs. I'm not really anti towards ICO, but I believe if the ICO has a real meaning, it has a potential to be raise a real money which can be utilized for the project development. So blockchain could be the tool that transforms the idea of smart economies into reality. That's obviously a plus point if you look at some of the areas where blockchain can actually disrupt. Moving forward, I'll get down to specific cases where blockchain can actually be helpful. And in recent past, we have seen the jobs have increased over 7%. And if you look at some of these statistics and go deeper doing data analysis over the LinkedIn, you would find a lot of people have started posting the blockchain jobs recently over a period of time. And then most of the people have started getting the jobs through a peer-to-peer mechanism, could be through LinkedIn or some of the other channels which people have launched, like a freelance service on a blockchain. So yes, preparing would definitely help and could be an added advantage to your career. And then probably you can consider it as one of the initial days where internet was born, and then all those people who have entered into the internet era and truly believe in that, are either sitting at the CXO levels or have made good money in their past. So, presenting the Gartner hype cycle, blockchain sits on the top for sure, no questions on that. And a lot of people have started asking me questions. I'll try to answer them in between. If not, then probably in next 10 minutes, I'm over with my presentation and try to answer most of the questions which I can take in the interest of time. So yes, Gartner is definitely very positive on the blockchain technology as creating a lot of applications in financial and non-financial sectors. So let's see what are some of the areas where already blockchain has taken a shape into. Facebook has started its own blockchain division with the aim of integrating the technology into its platform. We recently have heard about that close to 50 million, 50 million accounts have been attempted under the hack by some of the malicious activities happened over Facebook. So if Facebook tomorrow becomes a decentralized blockchain network, it can definitely add a lot of advantage, not just from the token side of it, but from the security and the other aspects of blockchain technology. Venezuela, like I said, has introduced their own cryptocurrency. BankChain in India has started and is the consortium of different banks, which actually is developing a lot of applications using their synchronization of the technologies and database and the expertise of the bankers. So I'm very much positive towards what some of the applications which can be seen by BankChain. Blockchain could be the answer of the issues that plague for society today, such as corruption and fake news. I'm personally very much positive towards fake news because, as we see, a lot of fake news gets ripple effect very easily and not being actually validated whether it's real or fake. So some of the projects which I am trying to consult with is in that space of fake news. If you have some of the insights to solve the problem efficiently, please feel free to reach out to me, because that's an area which I'm very much positive to work on. And then let's see some of the insights which people want to contribute on. So what blockchain can actually offer? Blockchain is a foundation technology for sure. It can cut down the cost completely by eliminating the need of middleman. And when you look at banking transactions, if someone has to do a remittance via Western Union versus Ripple, you would find a lot of cost you have actually saved by spending that money to or moving or choosing or opting for a blockchain side of it rather than going a centralized process, which is through Western Union. A different kind of a trust-based platform where trust lies in the system instead of the people or entity. For sure, we have already talked about decentralizing the trust. A fast and simple and reliable network. I mean, if you haven't tested out some of the blockchain which actually can transact the value, and also you can do the microtransaction, which may or may not possible with the banking account. Obviously, it is possible nowadays with the wallet, but blockchain gives you that added advantage as well. reduce the risk of failure for sure. I mean, because the ledgers are being maintained on a distributed and decentralized network, so it actually reduces the risk of failure. And even if a couple of participants go out of the network, the other new participants get into the synchronization of already existing participants. So yes, that's a decision tree. I mean, again, one of my favorite things to look at it, why to use a blockchain or when to use a blockchain. So if you want to solve a problem efficiently with traditional methods, I mean, you need to look at some of the parameters where blockchain can actually play as a crucial role in deciding whether you would want to go with the blockchain or you would want to go with the traditional databases. So if to sum up this, if you have a trust issues, if you have multiple parties, if you want your transactions to be public, if you want to have an objective immutable log, and if you want parties to not to conflict and agreed on a consensus mechanism, which is the brain of a blockchain, then you may need a public blockchain. If you want it to be used in a closed set of environments, you may go for a private side of it. Permission blockchain is a combination of a public and a private. It could have certain parties which will be the deciding factor rather than making it open for everyone to become a part of the consensus mechanism. So yes, you should look at it very carefully. I mean, rather than force-fitting the blockchain to every other project you wish to do, some of the projects which can definitely be done without the blockchain as well, and they do have a potential. I mean, artificial intelligence is yet to be combined with blockchain because a lot of data cannot be introduced on blockchain, and still a lot of problems which are there. I'll talk about it as we go forward. So yes, a lot of people have already asked questions in the comment section. Is blockchain safe or secure? To an extent, yes, but a lot of cyber attacks and the other things which have been attempted on the exchange, I would not see an exchange from a perspective of a pure blockchain technology. It is using the application of blockchain, but it is not which is using the concept or core application of the blockchain, which is smart contracts, nodes, or different other things. Yes, decentralized exchanges have a potential to it, or nowadays hybrid exchanges are coming up very efficiently. So yes, blockchain is now secure to an extent. Because blockchain utilizes the powerful cryptography to give individuals ownership of an address and the crypto assets associated with it. So if you see blockchain from the privacy perspective, yes, some of the transactions which can be seen throughout the network nodes, these produce metadata and statistical analysis, can reveal the information, even the encrypted data, allowing for pattern recognition. So yes, blockchain is better from hacking than the existing system. I mean, to an extent, security measures are being taken through the consensus algorithms. People use it, and the attacks usually happen because of poor quality of smart contracts which are written in some of the languages which has flaw, or some of the logic which doesn't really actually meet your problem which you wanted to solve using the smart contract. So to an extent, blockchain is safe, but some of the areas where it's still the advancement is yet to happen, probably folks like you can definitely add to it. And the best part is it's an open source, people can contribute from their experience and would want to associate with the other organizations, will be happy to improve the side of blockchain. So some of the areas where blockchain works very efficiently, financial for sure. Identity management is definitely a plus use case because a country like India has the identity issue because the servers are centralized and one hack attempt can take away your fingerprints and biometric identity. Audit and compliance, a lot of chartered account friends of mine, most probably they will listen to me. Audit and compliance definitely add the value to the organization which are coming up in a blockchain side of it, because traditional organization, you still have the parameter But for the audit and compliance, what are some of the parameters you would look at it in the smart contract to make it that this is really authentic to good to go and obviously agreeable between the stakeholders. Financial use cases are a lot, coming from the remittance to the payments. Digital currency is obviously being seen as the emerging currencies. Most of the countries where the economy is being threatened. Venezuela is one. If you look at some of the areas, I mean, to an extent, Ukraine had a lot of issues as well. But mainstream use case of cryptocurrencies to buy goods is yet to be spread across various parts of the globe. Keeping in interest of time, I should move ahead quickly. So how to start a blockchain project? You need to identify a use case, create a proof of concept. I give a lot of advice to people that before investing in cryptos, you should invest in your understanding or knowledge of blockchain, so that you can actually see whether there is an actual use case of blockchain using that checklist, which I've already shown to you, and then can implement it in your projects. So you need to identify some of the challenges, probably from the project perspective or also from the blockchain side of it. Develop prototype, yes, that's an option. You also need to look at it, that which blockchain suits you, whether you want to go with the public side of it, you want to go with the private side of it, you want to go with the permission side of it. And within the blockchain, which blockchain actually meets some of the parameters. So we can look for the comparison table, like Quorum, Hyperledger, multi-chain, R3 Coda. You want to execute the financial transaction mostly, you can go with the R3 Coda. You want to have the documentation process, you can go with the Hyperledger and Quorum. You want to have the public side of it, you can use Ethereum. You want to have the combination or you want to use the hybrid side of it, again, Hyperledger, or the blockchain like multi-chain or hybrid R3 Coda can be used. So yes, these are some of the parameters you can look at it when you start a blockchain project, if that actually meets your condition or not. So some of the challenges which are presently there in the present ecosystem of blockchain, regulatory is obviously one, because most of the governments have been very cautious about the technology from the application side of it, which is a Bitcoin, or standardization of the technology for sure. Infrastructure is definitely required for an enterprise blockchain, which is inexpensive, making blockchain a long-term investment rather than a short-term cost-cutting tool. Yes, it has a potential from cost-cutting from the middleman, but if you look at the infrastructure, it is yet to be a mechanism to cut the cost. So yes, these are some of the challenges. Lack of developers. It took us, I mean, in our organization, it took us 7 months to look for a developer in a country like India. Scaling is definitely an issue because most of the blockchain transactions takes time because you need to validate. Similarly, in a Bitcoin block, it takes 10 minutes to add a block, and then transaction goes validated and goes to the network. So yes, blockchain transactions are slow, and most of the protocols have been introduced very recently. Plasma protocol is expected to catalyze the blockchain transaction. Hashgraph is definitely another solution. Lightning Network, for sure, has been doing pretty well in some of the blockchain which has been introduced using Lightning Network. Mistrust of technology, yes, the idea of decentralized system does not rest well with everyone as it's against the norm and centralization. A lot of people still believe in the economy which is more privileged or more trusted or more established, which is a centralized technology. Example of use cases, there are plenty of use cases in the financial and non-financial industry. If I have to look at the financial use cases, there are, there are the use cases which have been used in the global payments. I mean, people have raised the ICOs by writing their white paper and introducing a prototype. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm not really sure whether the webinar would continue after 8 minutes or not. If we shut in between, I'll be happy to take the questions over LinkedIn or probably the email. So just giving you a heads up in between. So some of the projects which I actually believe in, if you can look it online as well, Blockstream is an open source project which focuses on sidechains, interoperable blockchains to avoid fragmentation. CoinsLedger is a New York-based Bitcoin exchange. It is working on a project Highline, a method of using blockchain to settle and clear financial transactions in less than 10 plus T minutes, which is being used in a Bitcoin blockchain. So they're actually very efficient in settling the financial transaction. Augur, which is one of my favorite use cases again, is a decentralized prediction market that will allow users to buy and sell shares in anticipation of an event with the probability that specific outcomes will occur. So yeah, these are some of the financial use cases where you can look at it online, and I'm really sorry, wish I had time to discuss more of the financial use cases. I'll just quickly try to wrap up the presentation. Healthcare, from the side of it is definitely a use case because electronic health records, you do not want your records to be tampered and be at the centralized authority, which could be the hospitals, and then can be manipulated to get the insurance later on. So the electronic health records, most of the blockchain companies like us have also experimented and tried to do it, but the real challenge comes in that the records are not digitized and still in the physical form. So yes, once you have the digitization of the records, blockchain can be an added advantage to it, and then can be facilitated to share or probably can be used to avail the facilities of an insurance. Internet of an asset, I've already discussed in parts in the earlier presentation, so I'll probably move ahead. Some of the interesting use cases which I've tried to look at from the internet, agri-production in Australia, what these guys are doing is actually sharing the asset over a blockchain. A tractor can be shared rather than everyone buying a tractor. One person can have a tractor, and then through IoT devices, I can directly pay to a machine using tokens. And then going forward, I can actually see that who all have used my tractor and the number of transactions which has been paid by an individual through an IoT device. I also see a future that tomorrow you go to a Starbucks, later on, probably a couple of years down the lane, you may or may not have a person giving you a coffee. You can actually take a coffee from a machine, and you can actually transact to a machine rather than to an individual. And that would save a lot of time, and the individual can be utilized to do different other services. Obviously, the human touch would be missing. So similarly in this, the shared asset ownership is being done on a blockchain through the tokenized assets. The logistics is obviously a use case where you can trace end-to-end packages, and you can see where the package has been tampered or who all has been very ethical in the critical chain. And then through the different technologies can be plugged inside, like IoT or artificial intelligence, to predict some of the models. And the favorite use case is wine traceability, because you do not want the counterfeit wine to be consumed. And this can also be put on a blockchain, because blockchain maintains the history, and you can actually see who has manipulated in the critical chain. Which territories are seen as blockchain leaders? Obviously, United States and China for now, but that would not be a sure shot that these countries will be the leading players tomorrow. Smaller countries which can have the altogether technological advancements using blockchain can also become the leader. Again, no deciding factors. What has been the criteria for being the leading country in the blockchain space could be the number of projects, could be the valuation which has been done for the projects which have been executed within the geography of these countries. Example of use cases, telecom, again, one of my favorite sectors, which I see a lot of potential in the telecom sector, because a lot of things can be minimized. Let's take an example, identity management in the telecom sector. Operators could develop an identity management tool that are accessible to organizations, devices, and applications. And also, you can have a smart connection. With the help of a blockchain devices, connection can be provided to multiple local hotspots and Wi-Fi based on permission to certain terms and conditions, and then tokens can be transacted. You can share someone's Wi-Fi, whether it's in your neighbor, and you can actually pay a token to them. Like sometimes I'm not able to use full of my data, so I usually end up wasting that data package per month, so I can actually monetize on that. Government voting system is one of the use cases which people actually are experimenting. So let's take an example. Someone is out of the country. Does he have a mechanism to vote? Can a blockchain-based application be introduced where he can verify an identity, whether he is traveling, and then can also get the right to vote for the country where he actually lives? Energy is a good case. One of the companies called Power Ledger, which has actually monetized the solar power which has been produced through the solar panels installed over their roofs. They are monetizing it, and going forward, the electric vehicles, power stations can also have the blockchain use case where tokenization will play a very crucial role. Moving ahead, I probably have a couple of minutes. Students, for the students joining this webinar, there are a lot of bright side opening for you because the job options have increased over a period of time, and there are very limited resources to meet that demand. So it's a good time to get prepared towards blockchain. Governments have already shared some of the use cases. Consumers, you can think about it that you are not getting any counterfeit goods to consume it. Government sector, a lot of governments have already tried and tested some of the use cases. Estonia is leading or probably giving neck to neck with Dubai, where a lot of use cases have been implemented already in the sphere of land records, medical records, identity, and bank chain. I've already discussed a bit about it. Ripple is also partnering with a lot of payment partners and services across the globe to test out their blockchain solutions where different other things can be worked upon using the Ripple blockchain. So to conclude my slide in a very efficient way, I think I can still present after the clock has already shown 60 minutes. So we are in a very early stage. I mean, a lot of people have asked me, have you missed that train? Is it already gone? Is it a good time to enter into blockchain? Yes, it's still a pretty good time to go with the blockchain side of it and also look at some of the emerging technologies which can be combined. I mean, the early days were definitely the ideation and POC and prototype, and we are just moving from idea stage to a concept stage. So a lot of pilots you would see in coming years down the lane. So yes, blockchain will begin to its mainstream probably by 2020, and the maturity is expected to be by 2025. So it's a very good time to get into the blockchain side of it and experiment some of the use cases using checklists and identify the problem, keeping customer at your center for sure, and then see what are some of the areas you see that there are problems with the conventional databases and you want to address it through blockchain. So a lot of negative things around blockchain that people have been telling about that blockchain will not scale, blockchain cannot do this, blockchain is just another technology. But if you see that the early days of the internet has been scaling over a period of time, the data usage has been increased, and we never thought of it that we would use Netflix as one of these streaming music or streaming video channels by sitting at our home. And now internet can definitely, it's definitely providing as one of the mechanisms to use all of these things by sitting at our home. So a lot of things will change over a period of time and will actually evolve. It's giving me a notification that I'll not be able to present it after a 1 minute. So I'll probably move it on to a slide where it can give you my contact, and then I can take questions from there. So if I see trend in India for blockchain and other disruptive technologies, it has definitely risen over a period of time. I mean, every other person in India is passively talking about hiring blockchain developers because they're in a very limited amount or limited quantity. Similarly, that the insight or the data would be for the other countries because it's a new technology and people have to learn some of the coding languages, which is similar to JavaScript in case of Ethereum, but other languages like Golang and for Bitcoin, you gotta be good with the C, C++. So moving ahead, the opportunity is still there, like I've already discussed. The early adoption days may have paused, but the opportunity of growth and the maturity is still ahead of the curve, and you can actually grab that. And conclusion, blockchain has arrived and it's here to stay. Blockchain is an emerging technology. Innovators have a huge responsibility. Innovators like you and I have a huge responsibility to take it forward into the adoption where people can actually understand it, and enterprises able to successfully integrate blockchain early into their operations will benefit greatly from the first mover advantage. You can probably note down my email address, which is aman@towardsblockchain.com. I think the screen would definitely